Hello and welcome to my channel, Rover Turbo. In this video we're going to be doing the front shocks on this Astra J 2014. Now this car has got a bit of a history when it comes to why I'm doing this. There is a playlist, I don't know if I can link to the playlist, but there is a playlist on my channel. I'll put a link up here to one of the things I've done to it. It's anti-roll bar bushes I've done. Also on a different matter, I've also done a timing chain on one of these. There's a how-to video on that on my channel. So this is the 1.6 diesel, so the chain is on the rear of the engine, not on the front or belt like you'd expect. So quite a common problem. If you know these cars, you know these cars. So anyway, I'll put a link to something up here so you can go and have a look back on the back catalogue of stuff I've done on this car. Now, short story, made even shorter. There's a noise coming from the front of the car somewhere we haven't been able to get rid of. It only does it on really rough corrugated roads, but it doesn't necessarily do it over potholes or lumps in the road. So I have replaced everything on the front of this car. From the front wishbones have been replaced, the drop links have been replaced, the top mounts have been replaced, the anti-roll bar bushes have been replaced, and nothing has solved the problem. So the last thing on the list is the shock absorbers. So that's what we're going to do today, is a quick how-to on how to change the front shock absorbers. It's not a particularly difficult task to do. Obviously you need certain tools like spring compressors and stuff like that, but if you're watching this video I'm sure you're going to get them, or you've got them. So let me just show you the shocks and then we'll crack on and get this done. Right, so these are the shocks. Monroe, I decided to go for something sort of relatively decent, so we've got two of those. I've also done a little video on trying to record the noise that it makes while driving down the road, which is quite unique. I've had a lot of comments in my previous videos saying, oh, it could be this, it could be that, and a couple of good pointers actually of some stuff that I'm going to go on to next if this doesn't solve it. But it's definitely a suspension related noise rather than a brake or back plate or heat shield type noise. So I'll put it in here. I'm just going to try and record the noise. Can you hear that? So obviously started off, take the wheel off. It's quite simple on these. We've got these two bolts here. We've got this bolt up here for the drop link, and then we've got this hose on this bracket. So basically what I've given these a bit of a wire brush up and some lubricant, same on that one. Obviously these will buzz out quite easily with the air gun or the gun. That just pops out, and this one's going to be slightly more difficult because obviously that's just going to spin, so I'm going to have to put a hex in there to hold that, or it might have a flat behind there. Sometimes they have both, sometimes they have one or the other, but I'll check that and I'll get the relevant. And then there's just bolts at the top, but I'll show you that when I get there. So that just pops out like that. So that's all we need to do for that one. Okay, that's an 18 on there. So we won't do that first. What we'll do first is we'll do this one first. No, there's no flats on there. So that's probably a 19. That's a 5mm if we need it. I'm just going to gun this and just see what happens. It might come undone, it might not. Sometimes if you clean the threads up and you put a bit of lube on, but I doubt it. Nope. But it's loosened it. So we're going to put a 19mm spanner on there, and then we're going to use the gun in reverse. Okay, and that's then out. Pop that back on there just so we don't lose it. I mean, depending on how old these have been replaced relatively recently, so depending on how rusty it is how easy that's going to be to do. So you might have to do that manually, because that just might be rusted up in there and it will just chew it to hell. So you might have to do it manually with a spanner and a ratchet. Now sometimes what you can do, if these are not coming out easy, is put the gun on the other side and spin it, and that will loose up all the crap and rust and stuff. But again, I've had this apart relatively recently because I've changed the top mounts, the bearing. There you go, and then that can hang forward like that. So that's that then, so that's disconnected. All we've got to do is the top. Right, so now under here we've obviously got the bolts for the top, or there'll be a single bolt in the middle. I'm not absolutely sure which one it is at the moment. So I'm not quite sure what's supposed to be holding this down. I don't know whether this is supposed to be attached to here or something. I'm not 100% sure. If we remove this little plastic donger, use a trim tool, it might help us a little bit just to just comes out, and this sort of separates a little bit, so it just gives us a little bit more room. So that looks like one big bolt there. So what there'll be here is this big bolt will clamp the whole strut in place, and then there'll be another bolt underneath it holding the spring on. So that's a 24mm socket. We'll go for a shallow one because I'm hoping I can get the gun on that. Not that one, it's too big. Right, so we've got a 1/2 inch wobbly here, so we'll try that. And that's the strut out, and that's obviously the bolt at the top. Right, we get the spring compressors out, get that set up in the spring compressors, compress the spring. Right, so that's the spring compressor. This is the kit that we've got here. It's basically loads of different size cups for different size springs, and then your main compressor, and they just screw in to the relevant sizes. So and this basically just compresses the spring. The socket ready, the spanner. So when we're ready, we can hopefully gun that nut off. Sometimes the shock spins. We'll see how we go. Yeah, that's just undoing. Easy peasy. But we want all the tension off of the spring before we take that top nut off. You can see now that this is loose. And that's the strut out, so that's all we need to do apart from get this matched up with the new one. Right, so we've got the new shock with the bump stop on it. They're handed, they're obviously handed. These are on the other, which one's on the other side, so it's obvious which way around it goes. I'm just going to check that this goes on here because I want to reuse this, because the other one is just a standard nut. This is quite shallow, I'm assuming it makes a difference. I'm just going to give these a bit of a clean up, and the bottom of the spring, because obviously this holds the mud, so we don't want the spring getting corroded and snapping, because it's a common place for it to cut snap as top and bottom where these hold the moisture. So there you go. And we'll slip this back in, and obviously the spring locates, nope, sorry, this bit, the spring locates in this big notch here. Maximum ugger-duggers. Right, that's it. Spring's on, bolt's tight. I'm just going to give the spring a bit of a clean up. Right, so just going to reinstall this obviously back underneath there, put the bolt on top. Right, so that's the strut in, and the bolt's loose on the top. I think what I'm going to do is get all this reconnected. And then if you want, you can check those manually, torque them up, or do it with a big bar just to double check. I normally do just use a bar on them just to make sure they're tight, especially bolts like that, which are supposed to be tight. Put a bit of lube on the thread, hopefully we'll make this go on. That is it. What I have noticed on the old shock, even though it seems to still work as a shock absorber, I don't know if you can see that, can you? But there's definitely massive play in that shock. How it's still functioning and it's not leaking, I have no idea. And this one, it's got no play in it whatsoever. So that, I reckon, has been our problem all along. So I just need to do this up. So there you go. That is what you call that. I'm going to think of the next guy, and I'm going to lava this up in copper grease, because there is a puddle of water in there. Give that a few thousand miles and that'll be a big solid blob of rust. together. What I'll do is I'll just check all those bolts manually. Right, so that's basically it. Obviously I've got to put the wheel back on, and I've checked all the bolts for tight, they're tight, and then I've got to do the other side. Right, so there you go. That's one side done. You don't need to see me do the other side, it's exactly the same, obviously, but opposite. So pretty simple job. You could just see a few spanners, sockets. Obviously if you've got an impact gun, it makes it a lot easier, and obviously the spring compressors, but it's a relatively straightforward, easy job to do. So that's pretty much it for now. Thanks very much for watching. Please hit like if you watched this video and it was helpful to you, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.